Well, hey there, everybody. What up? What's kicking? I can hear my wife rolling her eyes every time I start a video. She's probably just like, oh God, what is he doing now? Anyway, so let's jump into this one. So what are we talking about? We are talking about mistakes that beginners usually make that you can avoid. Now, a lot of these are coming from my own personal experiences and just from being a teacher for, quite a few years now. I've seen this happen with a lot of people who have come to take lessons and stuff like that, and I think there are a few things that we can really avoid that I found I wish that I would have done so much earlier on, and I always try to pass this on to new beginning students. So before we get going, if you guys have tips that you want to add in here, like I'm not really going to talk about using your pinky, stuff like that. There's all kinds of things we could mention. Leave them down below. There might be beginners watching this video who will find your tips helpful in the comments. So let's go. So tip number one. Now, if you're like me, I was inspired by Eddie Van Halen, who is, of course, very well known for his lead playing. As I got older, I appreciated his rhythm playing much more. But, being inspired by a lead player, I, of course, wanted to dive right in and play solos. And I did that, and I really wish I wouldn't have. Because after I had been playing for a while, I could play some solos, but I knew like no chords. I could barely play a G chord. So I think one of the big mistakes is jumping into stuff that is kind of not really what you need to be focusing on. There's nothing wrong with trying to learn some solos and stuff like that. So make sure you take the time. Learn those G chords. Learn the C, the A minor, the E minor, D. Learn your F. Learn your G sharp, bar chords, all that stuff. It's really, really crucial. It's one of those things, and there's a couple of these I'm going to mention, that will come back into play your entire time playing guitar. A lot of these shapes repeat themselves. Like if you're doing like a C chord, you might have a C chord up here, C chord shape, I should say. And you're adding little bits to it, but it's the overall shape. So you really need to have those basic kind of like concepts under your fingers. And I highly recommend it's not the most fun thing in the world, but just get to where you can kind of play a bunch of those beginning chords, open position ones down here. Now, next is do not neglect your rhythm playing. I think that's very, very crucial because, you're going to be playing a lot more rhythm unless you're like Santana, who does a lot more lead stuff. But most guitar players play like 99% rhythm, and then there's like a 20-second solo. Maybe unless you're doing instrumental music, that might be different. But a lot of times it's more rhythm-based. And that's what people associate with. So you want to make sure you have some rhythm chops in there. Learn different styles of music. If you're obviously starting out as a beginner, figure out what style interests you the most. For me, it was rock. So learning a lot of those AC/DC riffs, early on, were really, really crucial to me. Learn stuff like that. And it'll keep you, more kind of in the pocket when you're recording. Practicing with a metronome is a huge one because whenever you start recording, doing your own stuff, a metronome playing to a click is like essential. You have to do that. And if you've never done that before, it will mess with you. It's definitely a very key component. Number 3, that's the way to be. Can you dig it? So this one is learning the notes on the fingerboard. Now, there's really no fun way to do it. I've never found a fun way. You just have to kind of sit there and learn it. What I did was I learned it that way, and I also learned my scales. So I would say the notes while I was playing my scale, whatever it might have been. Scales, modes, whatever. I've kind of figured out the notes and mapped those out. And it really helped me later on whenever I needed to start building things, like using my triad inversions, building chords, understanding where like my root is, the 7th, all that stuff. And I still need to work on that stuff. But if you can kind of like instill that knowledge of those notes early on, it's really, really crucial. And it's something that thankfully I didn't really neglect that too early on. I learned the notes. So that was a mistake that I kind of avoided a little bit. And I'm extremely thankful that I did, because I know when people go to learn it a little bit further on down the road, it's way more difficult. So just kind of get that out of the way in the beginning, and you'll just continue to use it, and you just get better and better and better with it. So next, hola. Well, this one is capitalizing on inspiration. This is one, sometimes schedules don't necessarily allow this, but we need to make sure that we're doing this. If you feel inspired to play, or whatever the reason is, if you hear something on a TV show, maybe in the very beginning stages, you're not going to be picking up on this stuff quite as much, but if you feel inspired to play, do whatever you can to get your guitar in your hands and start playing. Don't think that inspiration is just going to kind of like sit around and wait on you to get done watching your TV show, wait on you to do. Like I said, I understand there's some things we have to do. You can't just drop everything that you're doing and go play guitar, unfortunately. But I think it's important if those situations do arise and it is something that you can kind of like, set aside a little bit. Do that. Get that guitar. The inspiration is such a key component to learning the guitar, to getting better at it, and just to continue to stay motivated to play the guitar. So if you ever have those moments where you're really wanting to play guitar and it is an option, maybe if it means missing your favorite TV show or something like that, roll with it. Skip lunch, skip breakfast, play guitar. I mean, that's one of the things I always did, and I think a big mistake is not kind of feeding that inspiration. If you're just like, oh, I'll get to it later, before too long, the inspiration's gone, and it doesn't always come back. So make sure that you are kind of like you're on your toes looking for that one. And the final one here, now I've kind of hit you with a bunch of, quote unquote boring things. I know when you start playing guitar, those are not necessarily the things you want to learn, but if you learn them earlier on and just kind of like fight through those beginning boring stages, you'll be incredibly thankful that you did. Now, the last one I want to do is make sure that you remember that you're having fun. It's easy to, once you get into the routine, get caught up in all the stuff that we talked about, learning chords, learning scales, learning all that kind of stuff. And it's so easy to forget sometimes, why you're playing this. So if you only have an hour of practice time, don't spend that hour only working on technique, only working on this. Make sure you have some time set aside that you're just playing music. Maybe you're writing music. Maybe you're learning a song you've always wanted to learn. Something that, 9 times out of 10, the reason we're wanting to play guitar is because of music. So make sure that is always a huge part and a focus on there. There's all kinds of other tips I could have thrown in here, like use your pinky, alternate pick, all this kind of stuff. There's tons of them. I've done other videos where I mentioned those. This one I just wanted to gear directly towards beginners. And hopefully this stuff is helpful to you. Alright guys, that will be it. If I forgot anything, let me know down below. Just leave a comment, say whatever tips you might have for beginners who are watching this video. Let's just try to make it a helpful video. It doesn't need to be a negative one by any means. We're all just sitting here trying to learn. So if you have any comments, leave them down below. Hit the subscribe button, and I guess I gotta go. Whoa! Well, I'm butchering this riff so bad. High fives up! Let's go.